Hello ratbags, what do you get when you combine Rust, the most toxic PvP game ever, with a Harry Potter game? Well, you might get something along the lines of Citadel Forged with Fire. It's got some great ideas, it's got some terrible ones, it runs great in certain aspects, and sometimes I really feel like I'm playing a tech demo. I'm going to give you my impressions of Citadel Forged with Fire on Xbox and PlayStation right now. Is this game worth your time? You will find out the answers today. Okay, brief overview of what Citadels is. It's a RPG multiplayer game, but has got lots of influences from survival. You're going to be grinding a lot. It has different various modes you can play. You can play online in PvE or PvP, or you can play offline just in your own single player world, running around completing quests, doing missions. It's got elements of ESO, a little bit of Skyrim, and that multiplayer aspect too. Character customization is pretty key for games like these. You'll be spending a lot of time looking at your character, and it's adequate enough. It does the job, it's got some nice options, and it's got a wide range of colours, so you can create yourself a She-Hulk or some sort of Red Devil Goblin. Now, the intro for this game is pretty interesting. The way that you rise up from these fire pits, reborn, is absolutely a great concept that I really wish we discovered why and how this goes on. There really isn't much lore to the game. In fact, the story is pretty non-existent other than some quest givers giving you some shenanigans about this and that and everything else. You don't really get much story. It's more or less just you come across some NPCs that give you quests. Now, back in the day, 2 years ago when it's launched, that was a pretty new concept for a multiplayer survival game. Actually having quests, actually having objectives to do, that was definitely more on the lines of a game like ESO than maybe Ark or Rust or Conan. And it may upset a lot of people, but I am going to be talking about them games because it may not have food and hunger with its bars, but Citadels is absolutely a grindy survival game at heart. You're going to be going around gathering resources, trying to level up your character, making bases and basically defending yourself if you're playing on PvP. And like I said, that's probably going to be its strongest point, is the PvP servers. But before we get into that too much, finishing off what it is, going around taking on different types of enemies, high powered enemies as you explore the lands, finding new loot that you'll get in loot chests, as well as being able to craft and make your own, is the order of the day in this game, leading up to boss encounters in specific dungeons and trying to tame creatures. Taming is a big part of the game, but maybe not as hard as you've previously played it in other games like Ark. It's a little bit more simplistic. The focus in this game is on magic. You're not going to be making yourself the most wonderful melee character, although there are some melee builds you can take advantage of. It's all about what spells you equip to your weapons, and that again is one of its strongest points. The freedom to make spells is fantastic. When you start gathering enough of the resources to make different types of spells, it really opens up the game a lot in what your build, what your character is going to be. You can be some battle mage, you can be a sneaky silent sort of stab in the dark magician. You could possibly be some sort of barbarian wizard as well, depending on what types of spells you put on your weapons. There's usually 3 or 4 choices that you'll be able to craft pretty rapidly, pretty soon. A wand, a staff, some sort of claw or gauntlet, and maybe a sword or a axe. There's various versions of these going around, but that's the main core of the weapons you're going to be having. But there really doesn't matter what weapons you use. They will come with buffs as you progress and find much higher level ones, but it's the spells you put on them that can really make a difference. And finding the regents, the ingredients to make your spells stronger, is what you'll be spending most of the time doing. Citadel is a grindy game, and I mean grindy. If you're playing this on official server settings on your own and you have no plans to team up with anyone else, you may find this game really frustrating. It's the biggest criticism that I had throughout early access, and it's still there. With good reason, I imagine. The further you get into the game, the more powerful you're going to become, and obviously they want to gate that a little bit so that you're not all of a sudden just this mega wizard on day 2. But that takes away some aspects of fun, and I really think that if the developers found easier ways to level up or to at least build bases, people would have a lot more fun with this game and it would maybe have more of a future. Unfortunately, that grind is going to put off a lot of players unless they're really used to games like Ark and Conan, and even then, back on PC, this game just never found a footing. It never got a player base dedicated to it. Literally one of the worst performing games in terms of daily players. It seems to have hit a nerve on Xbox Xbox and PlayStation, again because they just don't have that many types of games, and I kind of knew this would end up being semi-successful because of that. But long term, it could face the same sort of situation that Conan Exiles did. Before it went free to play on the PS4, Conan Exiles literally was dead. I mean, not completely dead, but it had lost a lot of players and people just weren't as interested in it as again. The new influx of players, the updates the games company did over that year really brought players back and have managed to keep them longer term. And I'm really hoping Citadels can pull something off like that and return to this game in wholesale. It feels like this game has only been developed in the last year by a skeleton crew. The updates haven't been as thick and fast as they should have been, considering it was early access, and despite their limited size, I know the studio's pretty small, they have published and made games in the past, so it was a bit of a surprise to see them announce it was coming to console so soon, especially when some of the big problems on the PC hadn't been addressed, and they're still just there. It is mainly that grind that's the biggest problem. The devs have stated in a bunch of Twitter posts that they are going to be ramping up a roadmap for the game very soon, but it worries me we don't have them plans in place as the game launches. You could argue it's almost a cash grab, and likelihood is it is. They need some money maybe for their studio, and so the only way to generate that money pretty quickly was to get a port done for Xbox and PlayStation. Now, that's not necessarily a terrible thing if they really put some of that money back into the game and start improving it over the next 6 months. I don't see a problem with that. So many AAA companies do it, why can't a small independent studio do the same? And that's what separates this from any other of them horrible games like Fallout and Anthem that launched with huge problems. This game does run moderately well. There is a game here, you can complete it offline on your own and you will have some fun with it. It's not necessarily something broken and a horrible buggy mess, it's just maybe not the best game going. In terms of technical, I really have to say I'm impressed. There hasn't been that many problems with it compared to something like DayZ, which is absolutely awful on console. Citadels runs well. I didn't notice too many frame rate issues. I've not noticed too many glitches, no bugs. I've not been kicked out of the game at any one point. So I've got to say it runs reliably well on the Xbox X at least. For the price of it, £35 is pretty much on the expensive side for what it does offer though, and it's going to be definitely maybe your third option behind Ark and Conan Exiles if you want a multiplayer game like this on console. There really just isn't that many of them going around, but it's not necessarily a terrible option. It does offer something very different. The magic is really its strongest point, and it's so great being able to craft different spells, changing up your weapons on the fly so that you've got access to potentially at least 8 different spells at any one time while in combat, and so managing your mana becomes really important. You can upgrade your health, you can upgrade your weight, and you can also upgrade your damage, but it's mana that I found was the key aspect of this game, is getting your mana recharge rate up as high as possible through spells and potions. That's the kind of side that I think a lot of people are going to love. If you ever loved ESO or Elder Scrolls like games like Skyrim, making your own potions, eating ingredients to see what they do, you're going to love this aspect of Citadel. We might also compare some of the AI to something like Skyrim back in the day on Xbox 360 or PS3. It's just not that great. It's probably even worse than that game, considering that game's like nearly 7-8 years old. It's a bit of a shame that AI hasn't been improved enough. It doesn't have enough animations and some of the creatures are pretty bog standard. I just feel like they could have done a little bit more of them. There's also not that much chance to meet as many enemies going around. You don't really feel like you're in a huge vibrant world like Ark where you could have creatures and dinosaurs at every corner. It's definitely much more along the lines of Conan Exiles. You're always going to find enemies in that exact spot, so you know where to go to farm them, etc. Some creatures do have little patterns of movement like fairies and pixies, and when you get into the later stages, dragons and eagles will be flying around a little bit more, but it's very robotic, very stiff, and I just think it's one of the areas that lets it down. Also, the difficulty of the enemies. You'll come across boars that will just kill and kill you over and over again in the starting area, and it takes you a while to get to grips with learning how to deal with them. Once you've done that, you start realizing, yep, you can make more harder spells that are going to help you, and you come across enemies that are sometimes really super easy, and then it's just a huge drop, or I should say a huge climb. Enemies become massively OP. They are literally huge sponges that can one hit you with just literally the tiniest of hits and you'll be brown bread. So the difficulty curve is really not there. It just doesn't succeed very well in taking you through stages of small early game towards late game enemies. And unfortunately, cheesing is probably going to be the biggest method you're going to be doing taking on these enemies, not building yourself up with all sorts of potions and armor pieces and weapons. It is going to be how you find a way to get an enemy stuck on a rock or between a tree so that you can kill it. Or my favourite thing, jumping on your broomstick and literally just wailing on enemies below you. Magic does of course power your broomstick, so eventually you're going to run out and you will have to seek some sort of land, but as long as you've got enough potions to keep your mana up and you've got higher mana, you will be able to cheese a hell of a lot of the same enemies in this game. The only real hard challenge is going to be the dragons that you fight. They move absolutely flying speed, really hard, and I've yet to even kill one or come close to even taming one. So this is meant to be an impressions, although I probably have treated it a little bit more like a review. I guess because I have sunk a week into it and it has been in early access, I have played it in the past as well. It's kind of somewhere in between. This game is going to be good if you like going out there and finding resources, you like making spells, you like the magic play. It's going to be good for combining that sort of stuff, and I think PvP is where this game could shine. Going around and raiding other players' bases, building up defences, they're the kinds of things that a lot of players really enjoy, and I think the magic element really adds a new layer to PvP style survival games like these. It runs well moderately, not too many game breaking bugs, glitches, it looks okay too. You could argue it looks a little bit last gen in some respects, and then sometimes it does some magical spells and they look fantastic. So a bit of a mixed bag, and for sure I really like other smaller things like the sound, the music, and some of the animations that you do with them spells are really cool. I really like the design of the build pieces. Making a base, making a huge castle could be really fun in this game, and some of the crafting stations, the decorative items, there's loads of that. So if you're someone that likes playing like roleplay, maybe you just want to play with some friends on a server together, it could be really cool for that. But it takes such a long time to unlock lots of these resources, and the build pieces particularly, especially like the second and third stage of build pieces, even with a boosted single player world, it is immensely long getting everything ready to do this. It doesn't have a full creative mode either, and that really hampers it. I just really wish they'd put something in there to make it easier, that you could spawn in items, or you could just make it however you want. There is some semi-cheat where it basically gives you as much as you want of an item, as long as you've already made that item before, or you've gathered that resource before, but that's all it extends to. It doesn't do enough in giving you more stuff. You've still got to go out there and get certain resources to mess around with spells, and you can't just unlock all the items with some sort of cheat or some sort of setting. You've still got to level up to get access to everything. So a game that I feel is best with multiplayer, and it really is going to be a case of you going on PvP servers and trying to complete missions, get more XP, go and find better resources and level yourself up so you can be an all-powerful mage and take on other players. That's definitely where it's going to be at. The map is pretty big though. It does get really hard, that difficulty, so once you start going a bit further you may find you keep dying with certain enemies, but the world is huge. The biomes are pretty limited. There's only 3 or 4 real biomes where they start to maybe all look the same. You've got like cold and snow, you've got like a frost ash area, you've got like a bog or wood, and the variations in between them, it's not that big. They kind of all meld into each other a little bit, so I feel like the world becomes just a bit boring, and especially as these biomes are huge. You go through the wooded glade area and it's going to take you a good 15-20 minutes to get out there till you're somewhere new, and the somewhere new just isn't maybe as special as it could be. So more diversity in the biomes would have been something really good, but like I said, the world map is so huge that once you get out there and you get away from the starting areas, you could probably build a base and no one would ever find you. Well, not unless they're really searching for you. Citadels, should you buy it? Absolutely buy it if you're looking for the next survival multiplayer game. If you're looking for PvP with a difference, if you love the idea of slinging spells at other players, raiding bases using spells, and basically trying to get good high level tames like dragons and creatures, that will keep you busy. The mechanics to do so are just not fully fleshed out enough. The difficulty curve is just too great if you're playing it on single player, and I just feel like there's a lot of problems with the game that haven't been addressed through early access, and despite the developers saying they've got a roadmap, I still don't necessarily trust they're going to revisit and rectify a lot of the problems they've got with the game. Is it worth £35? No. I would say wait for this to go on sale if you're a bit money conscious at the moment, especially this time of year with presents coming up and maybe you just spent a lot already on certain AAA games. This game is not a must buy for me. It's a game that can go somewhere if developers put some time and effort into it, but nothing they've shown me during the early access says they're going to do so. It's an adequate enough game, it's not broke and it's not horribly buggy. It is there, you can enjoy it. It's not like DayZ where it's just consistently lacking content, but it's still not enough to say it's a must buy. I will be playing it, I'm still going to do videos and I'm still going to do coverage. I know I'm going to pretty much start only playing maybe PvP official because that's where I really see the benefit and the good stuff with this game, going up against other players. Otherwise it'll just get too boring, too grindy on your own. You definitely feels like you need to play this game with friends on an official server or rented one if you can get enough slots and enough people to come join. I'm not the best at reviews, so I don't really want to give scores, and this is why I don't necessarily do reviews like these, because I'm not succinct enough in saying something. I waffle way too much. But good points. The building when you get there, the spells are great. The idea that you can go and tame dragons is fantastic, and various parts of the game are pretty. The multiplayer aspect, PvP, is great. The bad points, it's really grindy, it gets really boring, the biomes aren't diverse enough with enough going on, the creature AI is pretty terrible and there's not enough enemies to make it interesting enough. I feel like single player is way underdeveloped and they still could do a lot of work in giving people creative freedom to test and mess around with stuff. It's definitely needing more content and more updates to make this a must-have game. That's my opinion. Like it, lump it, I don't really care. You do tell me yours though. Put in the comments section what you think about this game having played it. What was it like if you played it on PC? What's it like now you've played it on Xbox and PlayStation? And what do you think about it if you've never played it? What does it look like to you after seeing gameplay? I am JPG. I don't do these often reviews, proper ones. I normally just give impressions. So this is kind of like a half and half. Let me know what you think and let me know what I should be focusing on in the future with more survival games. Until then, rat bags, I'll see you later on.